going to hop across the pond. And we saw Erdogan pull out a
Yeah.
victory on a tight race against the big coalition of more secular liberal bent to try to take him down in Turkey, which is a huge, one of the biggest democracies, as they say, in the world. And then we've also seen Assad welcomed back into the Arab League, and more countries in the Middle East are getting close with Iran. Generally, this is all a very different world from, the time of when America went into the Iraq War, and then 2011 in the Arab Spring when we tried to overthrow Assad, and all of the things we've been doing in Iran. In general, the Europe, the Middle East, it's all been very reshapen away from the globalist vision. Are we really? You think there's a because there's the classic meme like Assad must go, who must go, and the person who says
Oh, the
that,
line in the
they're
stand, the
gonna.
red line. Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
wondering, have we seen the end of the unipolar moment where America can use the information war to manufacture consent? Is that over?
Yeah, I really think so. I think you nailed it. I think you're exactly right. I mean, now some may not know what we're referring to, but you're basically talking about something that John Bolton admitted openly several months back in
Yeah.
terms of how the United States State Department, along with George Soros's NGOs, basically engineer what are called color revolutions, and it's very sinister because if you think it through, it's under the veneer of democracy, right? Under the veneer of democracy, these revolutions, these astroturf paid for revolutions, often, if not always, virtually always, seek to deliberately circumvent the will of the people in that particular population. In other words, these revolutions really have nothing to do with democracy and everything to do with orchestrating geopolitical power in accordance with the wishes of permanent Washington and the State Department. And we know this, of course, this is what happened back in 2014 with the Maidan Revolution in Kiev that overthrew a duly elected but happened to be pro-Russian Ukrainian president back then, a fellow by the name of Yanukovych, from power. And we know that from actually leaked conversations. It was a bug phone call, thanks to of all people of all institutions, the BBC and their publishing of the transcript between then Assistant Secretary of State Victoria Nuland, who's still around. They just go. That was during no, that would have been during. She was a Bushite, but that was during the Obama era, and they. The neocons, the Boltonite neocons, the crystal neocons, they don't care who's in power, just as long as they are. They don't care which party's in power, just as long as they're in power. But we know that she and the U.S. ambassador to Ukraine helped to orchestrate that color revolution. But first, gang, you have got to click on that link below and try for yourself the new technology behind MyPillow 2.0. It's amazing. Mike Lindell's absolutely outdone himself with the new fabric temperature regulating technology that keeps you comfortable all throughout the night. You're going to absolutely love it. I know I do every night. And you get the same amazing savings as always if you use promo code Turley. Normally, classic MyPillow is $69.98, but if you use promo code Turley, you'll get that same classic MyPillow for just $19.98, and that applies to 200 products in their catalog. So don't wait. Click on that link below. Give the gift of comfort and warmth for yourself, for loved ones. Support one of America's most amazing patriots and get the best savings ever with promo code Turley. Click on that link below right now. So I think you're right. I think there's clear frustration that all their efforts in Turkey against Erdogan, and you and I were talking behind the scenes on this a few weeks back. We really thought Erdogan might get picked off on this one. Our friends over at the Duran actually devoted a video on that a few weeks back before the first round of elections, where they were very concerned Erdogan was not going to survive this. We have to keep in mind he even survived a coup attempt, if you remember, back in 2016. But he did. He pulled it off swimmingly. Their efforts in the Middle East to keep Saudi Arabia and Iran apart, fanning the sectarian tensions between Shiites and Sunnis, well, that's gone. Their efforts in Russia, of course, have been totally thwarted. Their efforts in Ukraine are being frustrated. And even we're finding, interestingly, Conrad, I did a video on this earlier today. The Ugandan president was under enormous pressure not to sign that anti-LGBT bill into law, or just pro-traditional marriage, traditional sexuality. I mean, the Ugandan legislature was pressured, the president was pressured. We're seeing Kenya getting that same pressure, and we're hearing the same thing. They're basically taking these warnings from the State Department and telling them to shove it. They don't give a flip anymore. The adults in DC are finding that their ability to orchestrate behind the scenes the geopolitical balance in their favor is being radically hampered. And that's, of course, because, and you've talked extensively about this, you've written about this, that's because there's a new parallel civilizational world rising. I mean, when all's said and done, there is a new world order that's rising. It's very rich. It's got a lot of money. It's got the single most powerful manufacturing base on the planet behind it. We have to remember 70% of the nations around the world have China as their number one trading partner. 70% of the nations around the world have China as their number one trading partner. I mean, how do you compete with that, right? Saudi Arabia, Russian oil, all OPEC nations. China's the number one manufacturing power in the world. Russia's the number one commodities exporting nation in the world. You put those two together, so nations simply aren't intimidated anymore by the dolts in DC. So I think you're absolutely right. I think they just don't have the power that they used to pull strings behind the scenes, because it was always based on a combo of military and might and money when all said and done. And now there are other players in the world that are just as strong, that are just as powerful, that have just as much money, and we can't compete with that anymore. So what I loved about Trump is he was, with this America First agenda, he was basically saying, when he originally said we need to learn to get along with Putin, we need to take on China monetarily, in terms of trade, not in terms of military. He wasn't going there. He was just going solely in terms of bilateral trade agreements with China that they had been taking advantage of us so much, circumventing. I mean, he was basically saying we need to reimagine America's role in this new multipolar world. And what's our role? We're going to be energy independent. We're going to be economically independent. We're going to dislodge and decouple ourselves from all of these globalist, liberal, multilateral institutions, and we're going to start rethinking America first in relation to other countries pursuing their own nationalist concerns first. And that's where we're going to have to wait until another America First president comes into power before we see that kind of thinking, because clearly neither party in power really cares about this at this point.
I think in a way it's really crucial that the war in Ukraine has unfolded how it has, and thankfully in a lot of ways too, for better or for worse, conservative media has generally taken the correct stance, because it will allow more people, when whether Trump's back or someone, they won't fall for the trappings that the mainstream Republicans always say, that are like, but we're going to isolate, they bring out all of the more fiscal side of the globalist system and how it's not going to benefit us. You brought up Uganda. I was on Twitter telling Ted Cruz, hands off Uganda, Ted.
I mean, who needs Democrats? It's just, but that's what I mean. They're all liberals in the end, and that's what's dying. That's what we're seeing getting buried here, is the liberal world order. Now, Cruz is more of a conservative version of liberalism. Biden is more a leftist version of it. But when all's said and done, they're liberals. They really, and he even said it. He talked about what did he say in his tweet? The enlightened nations, or the civilized nations of the world, need to get together and push back against this. And you're just kind of like, that's 18th century Enlightenment BS. That's all that is. And the rest of the world's they're just not impressed by that stuff anymore.
It's even silly. Even the 18th century Enlightenment people would be like, "And you're using our talking points to defend what?" Like that's what it, that's what they even they
That's the irony.
would.
That's the irony. But that's what liberalism does. This is why I think many ways conservatives are always so you're such curmudgeons and they're always so negative and they always are so doom and gloom because the modern world is inherently progressive and liberal. But the good news is we're entering into a postmodern era where modernity's confidence that we're moving to a brave new world. We're going to throw away all our traditions and customs that we don't need anymore because they're so ignorant and knuckle dragging and like nobody's buying that anymore. We're moving and we're going back. Ironically, postmodernism means going pre-modern or more specifically archaeo-future. We're going to hold on to all of the technological advances, but we're going to bring tradition alongside, or at least temper the technology in relation to tradition.
The new future, because we can't superimpose, Catholic integralism or like Russian Tsarism or any other traditionalist, form of government. We can't just superimpose that on America. It has to be organic
Exactly.
and come out of it.